Equity Theft Scam Alert Part 2. This agreement is derived from the buyer, who is generally not working with a real estate agent, but they do work with real estate agents on the backside for a company that is partnered with them, not necessarily owned by them, but is partnered in some way with them. So this purchase agreement is between buyer and seller for a fixed amount, well below what the actual value of the property is, or perceived value. If you were to look at comps, it's probably about $100,000 to $150,000 less than what they would have gotten on the open market. So there's a couple interesting things about this particular contract that make it seriously flawed and heavily weighted in the buyer's favor. For instance, the earnest money deposit is in this particular agreement $2,500, but it's not due until within 60 days of ratification of the contract. And then, of course, the target closing is 60 days of executed contract. Oh, and there's a due diligence period of, you guessed it, 60 days. So essentially, the seller will never get earnest money, and the buyer can, at will, go in or out of this contract and cancel on their behalf. And the seller is just locked into it. Now, here's a couple of other big red flags in this contract. So there is a pre-marketing agreement. The pre-market agreement says that the seller agrees to appoint buyer as its attorney in fact, with limited power and authority to act in the name and place of the seller for execution of documents and offers necessary to list the property on websites, including but not limited to multiple listing services, buyer's contract interest, and buyer's contract interest in the property on MLS, investor networks, Zillow, and or realtors for the purpose of marketing and selling the property. This includes listing agreements, listing agreement addendums, disclosures, sales. Sales contracts and addendums. The authority herein shall include such incidental acts as reasonably required to carry authorities granted herein. This authorization is effective upon execution. Wait, there's more. This authorization may be revoked when the above state 1, time, power, or responsibility has been completed. The authorization form shall automatically be revoked upon either party's death or incapacitation. So if you die, the contract will terminate. But here's the thing. There's a survival clause. Survival. The parties' obligations will survive the termination, expiration, and closing date of this agreement during the period beginning on the effective date or date of contract signing and ending, get this, 5 years after termination or expiration of this agreement. Now, mind you, this is supposed to be a purchase and sale agreement, but this purchase and sale agreement includes the limited power of attorney, in fact, for in the buyer's benefit for the seller to list the property. That's right. They're going to put it on the open market. That buyer is going to put it out on the open market. They're going to get a contract for hire. The seller has the buyer has no skin in the game other than it's a gamble, and you as a seller are giving up all of your rights for 5 years. So I think that's the end. You'd be wrong. Memorandum of contract. Seller agrees that buyer may execute, acknowledge, and record a memorandum of affidavit of this contract in official records of recorder of the county in which property is located. Seller's signature on any affidavit or memorandum is not required for the recording of the same. This means they're going to put a lien on your property. So if you try to get out of this and list your property with a realtor or real estate agent that uses the MLS, they're watching you. They're watching you. And remember, you're bound to this contract for 5 years. Guess who gets the equity if you sell without using them? That's right. This supposed buyer. Not the buyer that is willing to pay full market value, but the person who wants to steal your equity.